The internet, a domain of nigh endless information and rich, complex interconnectedness. In a place this mysterious and vast, it's no wonder we need a way to identify ourselves. There's just so little spoken of regarding what that means. I mean, where would you even start, really? Because personally, I believe self-expression is too ambiguous to ever be defined completely. And online, there's just no stopping how many ways we can embody this concept. For in this domain of limitless possibilities, the forms that an account may take are practically endless. And it's all because we're unique and layered individuals. The reason you might use this platform is entirely specific to who you are as a person, for you are the original and only copy of yourself. Each account and avatar you make is an extension of your own personal truth, a piece of it at least. For you see, I've grown curious about the nature of these online personas, the ones that fracture and take shape into these many accounts we make for ourselves. They become like an alter ego or the many forms of a shapeshifter. And I believe these accounts are becoming and will remain a part of the human experience. As long as we continue to use the internet, profiles and user accounts will remain real and legitimate parts of our soul, real to both you and I in ways most will never understand. Because being here and navigating the internet has become a significant aspect of my identity, and it's taken many forms, and sometimes that form is digital. What is it about this place that makes our identity and self-expression so varied in this place? Is it all the information that we can access on a whim? Or perhaps it's the fact that we can communicate with each other so easily here? Or rather, it's this belief that we can do anything we so desire because we're all hiding behind these screens, allegedly anonymous to do as we please. And yet, I'm sure there's many more reasons than the ones listed, of course. Reasons that might haunt us, horrify us, and maybe attract us. But the question still remains, can we only ever feel so free, virtually? Because I found that the potential that this place has to be quite addictive, liberating even, as we march on forward into this digital dimension, delving deeper into dreamlike discovery over the nature of ourselves, as we choose to express our own personal identities online, realizing our own personal truth in the process. Because I find that real life only pales in comparison, and there's often a resistance to the way society expects you to be and act. Conformity is encouraged on practically every level, whether it be friends, family, or otherwise. Subconsciously or actively, people can't help but have their views and expectations, ones that don't always align with the way you see things and the way you might truly be on the inside. I find it to be the case that I'm never anyone's fancy in real life. I give pieces of myself to everyone, but my complete self remains unexplored in the real world. And you know, perhaps I don't try enough to give people the most authentic versions of my identity for fear of judgment, or worse. And yet, when I'm online, I can truly have my identity flourish, because the world here is so malleable, and there's no clearly defined right or wrong way to do this thing we call the internet. Things are moving too fast to ever last. So you've got no choice but to just hold on to the icons that represent us as we try and brave these uncertain seas of cyberspace. It's why I think people are ready to embrace whatever version of yourself that you give to them, because we're all just trying to hold on to something in this world of uncertainty. You know, it just seems easier to live within your own truth here, underneath the alleged guise and protection of online anonymity, perpetually drifting in this vast ocean of progress, change, and uncertainty. As trends bring forth new ideas of what should be relevant and important, you've got to get to grips with this idea of impermanence if you expect to navigate the internet for long. For in many ways, we just have to accept what people show us, because for the most part, it's the only version we'll ever get of them, until that changes as well. And I believe life itself is like this, because nothing lasts forever. In only a few clicks, you can present yourself in whatever way you choose in this cyberspace. over and over again. Free to appear the way that you wish to both yourself and others. It's beyond our physical limitations. You can truly look however you please here. And I don't know how ready we are sometimes for that in real spaces. People remain ever so divided in this fight to affirm one's own personal reality, much as the progress of science, fashion, and thought continue to break down arbitrary barriers of human expectation. We still see people try and force others into neat and limiting categories. It's probably why I'm online as often as I am. You never can get too boxed in when you can be whatever you decide from one moment to the next. When the only truth people can truly accept is the one you give them, whether it's real or not. Online, that is, because you're in control here. And as you pick your username and password, there's nothing stopping you from being anyone or just anything, really. And I don't think we appreciate this phenomena enough. The wonder of your own personal avatar, birth of your mind's design. Because here, you can connect to anyone and anything you so desire, fashioning your own persona as you blur the walls of where one can go and who one should be. And as the borders of the real world melt away, you lay witness to the potential of this beautiful thing we call an online identity. Formless, shapeless, and free. And so, I found myself reflecting on the experience of this constant, liquid reality. Because for me, being online feels like I'm shuffling through highways and sewers and vast and deep contortions, lost in a series of endless intersections where I'm overwhelmed by the cacophony of people and information, and there's no stopping how dense and messy it feels sometimes. I never understood it before until I took the plunge, stepped forth and readied myself to explore this wild marketplace of ideas. I suppose in some ways we're all one amongst this sea of thoughts and feelings, caught in this web. We are all trapped in this hurricane of technological interconnectedness, because being everywhere and nowhere at the same time frightens me. And this medium which we call the internet has made information exchange infinitely more effective. Perhaps too much so in many respects, because I believe there's something to be said about how accessibility can make certain things feel trivial, and whether that be social relationships, knowledge, or just communication in general. When the internet provides you so much convenience towards achieving these things, you might be left to wonder what that's doing to you, and to me especially, because these things don't feel as special, I'd say. And when these things are easily acquired, or at least appear to be, I fear we may take the importance of our identity for granted, lest we spoil the merit of things once fought for in earnest, spoiling ourselves with these magical machines as we lose the capability to use the skills which were once used to gain these meaningful things in life that we all so desire. And in truth, I'm scared to some degree, because this online identity is one we all seem to have, and it's made many real-world things feel less special, arguably just so trivial in the grand scheme of things. The things once obtained through labor and time in the real world can be achieved from the comfort of cold, digital buttons that are a far cry from their organic counterparts. Because you can be online as much as you please, without restriction, and it's all at your fingertips, all so accessible really. And in some ways I feel like that's the problem. This realm is simultaneously giving us so much beauty, and yet so much horror all the same. Because the more I reflect on the nature of what we call an online identity, the more I doubt that it's up to us whether we choose to be online or not, at least entirely. You know, a significant part of our identity nowadays is in part forced to birth in this cyberspace as a consequence of where we're at as a species. And so the magic and beauty of reality can just slip through our fingers as we use these hands to increasingly grip towards these screens for the vague pursuit of whatever we believe to be truth, substance, and meaning. And so, for the great foreseeable future, the internet remains a constant in information exchange, a constant of which we have no clear replacement for. It's an all-inclusive package, and in this age of information, I can't say I blame people for being so terminally online, attached to this domain like it were a limb or a vital organ, because sometimes being online is the only effective option when none other remain, or at least compare in any measure of the word, especially if your livelihood depends on it in some way. So maybe we're all stuck here, online, and I found that being online or not isn't always the choice it appears to be. Perhaps the only choice is in how much you use it, or how much you let it use you, rather, if that's even a choice either. It's for this reason that I believe that profiles on the internet are becoming inescapable. And with that, our online identities, I question even making a difference. Because I believe that online profiles and the nature of identity as a whole are strongly related, I believe. And they're linked in a way deeper than most consider. With the surge of social media and smartphones, I don't think it's out of the question to say that your virtual identity and presence is not only heavily encouraged in many ways, but perhaps demanded upon. And at my age as a young adult, it feels like there's this pressure to stay connected to others, especially in this online context, because it seems that nowadays most will sooner know you by your email address or your social media tag than an actual physical address or number to reach you by. And it doesn't matter if they're complete strangers, mind you. The access is growing to be rather comparable these days, and it makes you wonder how close one is to another's doorstep, virtual or otherwise, because we're all connected. And this phenomena is novel to us as a species as far as I'm concerned, because this is a contemporary without comparison, and we are distinctly operating in a new age. All of us, as humans, we're all cohabitating this new interconnected experience, and I found it all so interesting how we're all just so accessible to each other now, as strangers especially so, and I don't know if we were meant to be. But hey, to those who matter to you, you can reach them now in ways you couldn't have ever before, and some would argue it's just for mere convenience. But if convenience is the reason, then being online in some capacity is becoming a state more convenient than always being physically present. So there it goes. We've established now that at least a few parts of ourselves will remain perpetually online. Virtual organs, if you will. And I believe we're learning to operate increasingly within the immaterial and the conceptual, rather than the physical and the real. Because this world is growing to become one that's increasingly experienced online. For in many ways, being able to navigate the internet as a user grows to become a skill necessary to function in this increasingly modernized world, one that incorporates the internet into its new reality, for humans at least. And as everything is digitized and uploaded to the virtual stream, so too does the human experience find itself in a similar fate, because we're distilling aspects of ourselves into the depths of this digital world, populated by our virtual personas. And we've put our opinions, perspectives, and ourselves all together into boxes, sites, and groups online. I think we've begun to contort ourselves into something of a museum for one another. And I don't know if it's right to stare at these many lives, places, and faces on a regular basis, with no greater sense of connection to one another, as we just stare. Everything has become so distant and yet so close altogether. Before our eyes, it's made the world feel so connected yet lonelier than ever before. And I feel like the nuance of embracing our physical reality is lost upon us here, on the internet, that is. Because in this place you can mix and match parts of yourself, choosing only to express the parts of you that you wish to show on this platform, if that's up to you, of course. Because unfortunately, in this cyberspace, many are left immortalized in unpleasing renditions of themselves, cursed to be rendered throughout the digital sands like a vain mirage, a torturous view just always out of reach, endlessly tempting, unless, of course, you've chosen to accept what comes with being here, this virtual butcher shop. The idea that parts of you will always linger here, even when you've pressed the delete button. Your finger on the trigger, abstract images and cables under the sea, a wild distraction amongst all these digital screens. Because we are flesh-based machines, connecting slowly to this new reality. And it's come to form the whole of this experience you're perceiving, an accumulation of sounds and pretty pictures on your screen, a disconnected piece of many thoughts that come together to form the whole, because who knows what this is. So bear witness, for that is the true nature of having an identity online. Profiles, avatars, and whatever else you call them have made us simultaneously so identifiable and yet so anonymous all the same. As we spiral into a means through which we can observe ourselves in ways we couldn't have ever before. And it leaves me a bit enchanted as I reflect, thinking about all the possibilities that we have yet to achieve that are certain for us. Certain if we keep looking deep and down this rabbit hole of ours. It's strange and scary, I must say, but I almost like it in some ways. Because when you have an online identity, and you will, you don't have to deal with the reality of things as much. There's another place for you to exist, even if it doesn't include reality as we know it, and it blunts us to the true weight of things. Because our reality doesn't have to be fully experienced in any one place nowadays. We can always escape to the internet in some way, and you're more fluid and malleable to the way you express yourself and the way others see you. So as long as you remain here, online that is, the physical human equation can be removed if not diminished or warped into a fascist smile of what once was. And yes, that might be quite cold somewhat. And yet, as cold as the internet may be, I wonder sometimes about the thoughts one may have whenever they enter this place and log in. Because I'd like to ask you, what brings you here in the first place? And do you feel just as real here as you do offline? Because from where I see things, the consensus to how we use the internet and what that means to us remains undetermined. Maybe you've got the answer, although I've yet to find it personally. There's just so much to consider in this sandbox, this place of wondrous opportunity. And you know, I ask myself often what kind of person I am here and what effects being online does to my sense of self. Because even when I take my distance from being online, there's always a reason for me to stay or come back. And whether that's work, school, or other functions of life, this place we call the internet has intermingled in my dance between reality and identity. And so, I find it's getting harder to keep a strictly non-internet reliant lifestyle. And as we march on forward into this vague progress towards the unknown, consider what being a citizen of the internet means for a moment. Because sooner or later it seems we all sign up. And with the push of a button, one can become a part of cyberspace. The web, the strange land of concepts, feelings, and people without clear shape or form. And in truth, you don't need to hear what I'm saying. You can feel it. You can roam in this digital land and fall deeper into this rabbit hole. And as I've sunken deeper into this place, I've found that I've had to wonder about what I'm getting from this experience. There's just a danger and beauty to it all here in this place. The most traumatic or insightful things you can ever find are waiting for you here. And it's all a dice roll, I suppose. Because with enough clicks, it's anyone's guess. Accessing information can be done without much of thought nowadays as it stands. Just as we're doing here, you find yourself listening to me, broadcasted to you through the whims of an algorithm of machinations we could never fathom entirely. Completely, at least. Are you glad you're listening? Because in many ways, I don't believe we realize just what we're approaching as a species on this platform we call the web. Because from 3 million people just over 30 years ago to 5 billion users in the year 2020 alone, we've now observed a growth on a scale incomprehensible to human understanding. So we are now, as a species, mostly all in contact with this strange place we call the internet. And we're all people with our own lives and dreams, and profiles especially. And it feels as if the internet is practically begging us to upload a part of ourselves here. To find a new form of connection and consciousness even. So are you online or in real life? And is there even a difference? Thanks for watching. And don't forget, you matter because you exist.